women have equal rights in the United States. You are allowed to do the same things that men do. A lot of time what happens with like inequality is not actually
the market, right?
No, it's not the market, it's difference in preference. Specifically with like, if you're looking at like income inequality, there are so many confounding variables that you have to look at when comparing income inequality. Where do you live? What's the cost of living? What kind of job do you do? What's the risk associated with your job?
Logically, markets and capitalism is the best resource, right? You kind of prioritize the best, right? But if that's the case, women could get pregnant, hence they have to take time off, hence they're
But that doesn't mean that they're not the best at something. Despite the fact that you can get pregnant, they can still be incredibly skilled over other people.
But I think in capitalist societies, because of that time you need to take away, it's a risk.
There are disadvantages.
Like
there are biological disadvantages.
Financial risks is what
nobody's contesting that there's a major biological disadvantage for women. Women can also choose
Has there been
not
a
to be
communistic country female leader yet?
Margaret Thatcher. New Zealand has one. Finland has one. Is there a communist?
Kim Yo-jong's her name, right? In the DPRK.
Yeah.
She's one of the highest up in the
Wait,
DPRK's
what country are you?
Oh no. We brought up North Korea to the Westerners, everybody, and he didn't even say he gave it the real name, so right? So then Americans are like, wait a second, wait, did he say the bad Korea? Did he say the bad? Man, and then of course the good old, how many communist female leaders have there been, right? Like, oh well, I guess since Barack Obama was a black president in America, you guys beat racism, right? I mean. Ty Lopez being here is only like, I feel bad for the capitalists that they have to have this guy here. Y'all deserve someone better who's gonna be like, like they're like for example, the amount of like black conservatives online in the internet sphere that are way better with these talking points than Ty Lopez. It's kind of embarrassing and having that stronger diversity would have been better for their arguments too. But nope, they got Ty Lopez here. So yeah, I think. Because Cam is trying to say, right, like he's like, I agree with Cam's sentiment when he says like, oh, there's all these factors involved and it's not, like it's not saying that they're not the best at something, right? But he doesn't understand the material analysis that comes with being pregnant, the physical costs of that, the medical costs of that. Who's the partner that you're raising this with? Do you have a partner? What materials, what resources, what education? It's a whole affair. It's a whole deal. It's not just maternity leave. It's not just like these weird metrics of equality. Women, like for Christ's sakes, just having children born in America are these ridiculously expensive bills, man. It's so expensive. Jesus Christ. Like the Chinese policy screwed up the one-child policy. They messed up, but they admitted that and they got rid of it and they changed. In capitalism, people are dropping tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, on childbirth, and everybody's like, "This is fine," right? Again, like, what's the point of having these arguments if you can't hold people's feet to the fire? If you can't, hold their arguments up, have good scrutiny here, right? Like, it's just a bunch of nonsense, and we're about to see what Christ God. I'm so scared what's about to happen. Bringing up North Korea. Yeah, but at least, back to what I was saying with Cam, right? Like, he's trying to bring in a good argument. It's like, no, like nobody's, I believe that they don't have that they don't want to have a society like that. But, it's kind of funny. I haven't heard Hannah talk. We'll see if she has something to say. But it's just kind of, irrefutable, that's kind of the relationship you have in a market society. It's a market society. And it just goes to show how like idealism in Western quote unquote analysis is blinding so much, right? Because it's like, no, ideally speaking, they're equal. Ideally speaking, it's a free market. Like, it's all this idealism stuff. Where in material reality and material analysis, looking at the situation, you realize like, nope, there's some real some real BS here. So let's continue.
The Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Let's not use North Korea.
Well, the U.S. has also had like very high people.
The actual name of the country is DPRK, though.
But the point is, there's never been, if we're going to say communist, the prompt was, through communist economies, countries treat women better. So if you have no female leader ever.
But you gotta look at averages though, right?
No, but that's a bad average for you.
Can I have my disagreement on the original point? Let's go. Because listen, I think it's a fair point in some ways, but also like as a woman, I don't want just to have like a tokenism kind of representation. Like that doesn't, if Hillary Clinton became president, it would be no better for me as a woman, right?
See, dude, if they just got like 2 other people, like Hannah, like she's trying to be fucking sincere. She's trying to she's annoying the shit out of me because it's white woman shit. But like, I appreciate that she's actually fucking like trying. And thank you for bringing up this token as like, and now here we go, right? The capitalist infighting begins, like, right? Because Ty Lopez is saying like, yeah, you need to have a woman leader as the, it's. I mean, it's a tokenism argument, but he's saying that it's supposed to be symptomatic of progress or something, right? But then Bunny says, right, like, well, what about averages? And he's like, well, that's the average for it. Like, bro, that's not what averages are, man. It sucks, dude. I really wish they got somebody better. Cam's all right. Hannah's doing the best, but Ty Lopez is a huge weak link for them. They deserve someone better here to have their arguments better represented. And it's just good. I appreciate, I really, really do appreciate when conservatives do, like, at they least try to be like, no, like, that is wrong, or no, like, we should try to change that, right? Even if their solutions and opinions and shit are bad. It just shows that they're willing to, that they want to care. They want to understand properly instead of being, absolute grifters and being like, just, I mean, it's all grifting at the end of the day, but, absolute grifting. It's such a fucking shame, man. Like, seeing, like, there are a lot of, like, Candace Owens is, like, a piece of shit human being, right? And Tomi Lahren is, too. Lauren Southern, right? And not that this Hannah person has, like, the same level of clout that those women do. But I really do think that, like, the conservative women right now are way better at, like, describing the arguments, like, bringing up the principles. It's kind of embarrassing how, like, not well prepared the men are in comparison. Cam's doing okay, but in my experience, like, conservative women can really hold their end. The problem is, it just sucks seeing that they're literally fighting for this misogynistic side. They don't understand, like, the patriarchal justifications and like, reinforcement, the reinforcing structure that it comes with it, with capitalism, when you create a patriarchy. I mean, how many times, like, are they going to get interrupted in their own political circles, not being heard by the same men that share their ideologies, that apparently care about, like, that, not that, like, misogyny just disappears in communism, but, like, we're trying, like, we pay attention to that and try to change it. And then, she even recognizes, right, it's like, well, it's not like a woman in general, like, being in power doesn't mean that, like, that's better for me. And she's absolutely right. It just sucks, man. So much of this conversation has problems because of Red Scare propaganda. And it's going to be really difficult going forward to have, like, just like a really good discussion, noting that.
So that doesn't actually advance me.
The culture.
But what does advance me are civil liberties. What do advance me are having the ability to speak my mind, to pick which career I'm going to do, to decide if I want to have kids, if it's worth taking time away from the workforce, or if I don't want to do that. The ability to have those freedoms are here. And yes, there are many flaws and there are things that take away from them in our society. But as you mentioned, legally, women have had equality for decades and decades and decades. And now that we have seen that time period play out, women have been advancing leaps and bounds. They are graduating college at higher rates here than men. They are starting to out-earn men when you look at apples to apples, when they have the same job, same education. They're outpacing them in their advancement within companies. Women and men need the same things, and that is freedom, autonomy, the government not getting in your way, equality, civil liberties.
Do you think economic?
So there's one critical problem with her argument, and it's not obvious right away. It looks like they're gonna kind of brush past it. And based on, like, reading Malumbo's vibes, again, if I'm mispronouncing his name, my bad, bro. Mole's vibes, right? Like, he starts rubbing his back, because we're going back into this idealist analysis where, I mean, are women truly equal, right? Like, in all those decades in America, I mean, man, that's, like, really up for debate, right? Because then there's stuff like abortion, right? That's not being introduced in the discussion here. But when Hannah brings up the arguments about, like, women are graduating more than men in college, women are outdoing men in the workplace, right? What nobody's really, like, everyone's forgetting, I guess, in this analysis is that men lose from that. Why? Because capitalism cannot guarantee full employment. There will always be a reserve group of people that are just willing to do more shit for less, to take more abuse for less. because that's how the society functions. Because it's not profitable to give everyone a setup. If you give everyone a job, you are building a society of mutualism, of like universal self-actualization and prosperity. But in a profit-based system, you only need your resources. You only need the finite amount of labor. You only need the amount of like whatever it is you need, right? And so, while women are definitely like progressing, again, like these rights are being fought for by like dissenting people, like she's like carrying the load, like taking the credit of like leftist feminist movements fighting for women's change and being like, yeah, dude, look, capitalism's giving us like better stuff. But yet there's a whole, there's the whole, like, so much of like this male, like loneliness epidemic in America, for example. So many of like these male related problems come from like women. Yes, like it's a good thing that they're getting more representation in the like they're getting more fucking economic freedom and power, right? A similar thing's happening with Black Americans as well, with really all non-white, like if you're not straight, not white, and not a man, things are getting better for you in neoliberal America, for the most part, not not blanketly, right? And this is because the market is adapting to the demands for diversity and inclusion and variety. When things like mainstream beige fascism, right, being this streamline for a very, very long time in America, was the demand. And so women having like notice here. Let me put it this way. Like, there are so many more women in the workplace now. There are so many more women who have all this autonomy in America. There are so many like Black Americans that have so much more autonomy. But economic conditions in America are not getting better, are they? And this is how you end up getting reactionary arguments where they complain about immigrants. They took our jobs, and they blame them. Like, no. These are just capitalists getting, like, they're literally just doing what's in their best interest. We would do the same thing. Not communists, but individuals, human beings. You would do the same thing. It's just business and profit interest to, like, not employ everybody, because then you end up cutting your losses and stuff. You end up trying to provide and like give people wages and jobs. You're going to be losing money. That's not how when you provide for things, that's a cost for resources. Dude, I could go on and on with this stuff. Like, I could seriously just keep going on and on and on. And it's so difficult to have these conversations when like it's so like obscure and abstract, and like the talking points related in idealism and stuff. Look, the point is, like men's lives are do I want to say worsening? What men's lives in America are worsening in a way, in a cultural phenomenon type of way, that's not being included in this conversation. And oftentimes men like blame women or blame like immigrants or like Black America or whatever it is, that's like taking this new precedent. But nobody seems to be remembering the fact that like material conditions in America, we are in the worst economic conditions in American history. It doesn't seem like that because consumer fetishism is very powerful, and having shiny screens and flashy things and flashy cars and bright lights and all this like fine tuning, high definition, filtered, everything's hyper individualized. You can have all these little preferences. Like, so much of it is so consumer affected that it's not obvious to see that at first, but it's objectively true by all standards, by all metrics. Like, things are not okay in America, and you're not being serious if you can't admit that. And that's not being included. This part about how like full employment is not guaranteed in capitalism, like that's not being, I mean, it might be included, but it's not being included so far. And before I kind of keep going on and on, I just think it's important to point out that like that's not the success of individuals in a capitalist society almost universally requires the oppression of someone else. And until right wingers and centrists and all that stuff are willing to acknowledge that, it's almost pointless having these conversations. But I digress. Let's continue.
Stability is one of those things that
I
women
do,
and
and I
men
think we
crave
have-
and need. But
yeah.
you would say capitalism is what gives economic
Absolutely.
stability.
Or gives it
Even
better.
though
Gives it
80% of
better.
women are living paycheck to paycheck, it's still better
Wait,
than
but
I don't know
that's
that that's
just
a true
relative
fact, number one,
poverty. So there's always going to be relative poverty, even if
Not in
everyone in your
China.
society.
It
Wait,
was
wait, wait.
relative
Do you know what
poverty
relative
according to the World
poverty
Bank.
is? There's always going to be relative poverty in every society because relative poverty is just generally defined as making 40% less than the median income. There's always going to be a median income unless everyone's making exactly the same. So there's always going to be somebody living in relative poverty. But I want to address something you said earlier.
Man, what an completely just unknown self-own, right? Because you're literally admitting that capitalist success requires an underclass. It literally requires that there's going to be people that are living like in bad standards. That he's literally saying that like it's always going to be the case when that's the not only is that anti-dialectical, it's proven false in China, right? As Eddie brings up. And so yeah, I mean, you know, of course to like what you know, like peak American Western standards a few decades ago when like China was first opening its markets. Like, yeah, dude, it was not it wasn't as good. But nowadays, man, like it's better in China. Excuse me. Wait. Oh, okay, we're still recording. I thought I wasn't recording for a second. We're good, right? In China, it's just like the entire well-being of Chinese people are being like improved, and so like metrics about relative poverty become irrelevant because you're deliberately trying to make sure that there aren't people in poverty, whereas capitalism fundamentally concedes that there must be an underclass, this lower class of people, right? We go back to I was just saying the reserve army of labor, right? Basically just a bunch of homeless or unemployed people that can like, you know, basically be scabs of a kind or like replacement labor at the drop of a hat, right? It's just a shame that that's like not being, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to like, you know all these arguments and stuff like that, but it's just a shame that that's, you know, the ideological framework is really so blinding, so rife with biases that they claim they don't have. They wield the aesthetics of science and research and statistics to create these convoluted analyses which aren't even accurate. And they don't assess things comprehensively in a non-contradictory way, in the way that I've just illustrated. And we'll see if it comes up in conversation. But yeah, I digress. Let's continue and see what else is going to be. He's got something else to say, I guess.